Ah, video game movies. With their perennial dedication to non-quality, it begs the question if the writers have ever even played a video game before. Some attribute the awfulness to complications in translating an interactive game into passive medium. This is a lousy excuse. Sweeping narratives are told in numerous game manuals, text boxes, or cutscenes. A cinematic cutscene can be as captivating as the gameplay. Thusly, the fault of putrid adaptation lies with the screenwriting. The Silent Hill franchise is a plot-driven masterwork, practically gift-wrapped for the screen. How did Hollywood manage to mess it up? Super Mario Bros. Was a box office mishap, based on the largest game series of all time. Does Hollywood correct their folly with a better version? Nope, they just toss it aside and move on to the next title, like locusts decimating vegetation. After all, they know people will gobble up the unaided awareness and nostalgia like candy, regardless of quality. As King Koopa says, they'll be rolling in easy money. And now, another adaptation can join the garbage heap. Bally Midway's 1986 arcade classic, Rampage. A parody of 1950s and 1960s radioactive mutant films, the player's goal is to raise cities as the characters George, a scientist whose experimental vitamin morphed him into a giant gorilla, Lizzie, a Godzilla clone who previously was a woman that swam in a radioactive lake, and Ralph, a man exposed to food additives that changed him into a towering werewolf. More devastation means higher points. Not the most virtuous message, but it's fun, and leave it to Hollywood to spoil that. Warner Bros. Acquired rights to the game back in 2009, and the project was announced in 2011. Dwayne Johnson signed on as the lead in 2015. Cats and Dogs, The Revenge of Kitty Galore, and San Andreas director Brad Peyton, who joined as producer and director, promised the film would be, quote, a lot more emotional, a lot scarier, and a lot more real than you'd expect, unquote. Emotional? Rampage is supposed to be campy. He claims he's building onto the original, which will surprise people in what it delivers. He, quote, doesn't want anyone going in with preconceived notions about what a Rampage movie has to be, unquote. Translation: they've thrown in a bunch of irrelevant stuff. He further reassured everyone by adding, quote, if they called me tomorrow to do Call of Duty, I wouldn't want to play any of the Call of Duty games. I'd have to come up with something that deserves to be its own thing. That's where a lot of these movies can go wrong, unquote. Of course, because following a game's established tale isn't necessary, apparently. So how have the filmmakers improved the arcade, quarter-devouring classic by scrapping it in favor of a Mighty Joe Young, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, 1998 Godzilla, Konga hybrid? Firstly, the Alvin and the Chipmunks The Road Chip screenwriter wrote this, so prepare yourselves. Dwayne Johnson plays David Okoye, who's pals with Planet of the Apes Winter. Oh, excuse me, I mean George. A top-secret space station crashes to Earth in 3 pieces. George finds one, and the remaining 2 are discovered by a crocodile and wolf. The animals grow, and George becomes hostile. In Chicago, the brother and sister CEOs of the failed space station activate a beacon to lure the genetically edited animals. Meanwhile, Dr. Kate Cadwell, who used to work for the siblings, informs David as to what's happening to George. They quarrel and bicker in a contrived romantic subtext, because nothing says love like insolence. Kate and David must find an antidote to save George. So, why aren't the monsters mutated humans anymore? Probably to avoid the game's little matter of encouraging the beast to eat hapless citizens and cause destruction. How could Hollywood ever advocate such behavior to concerned parents? With the unaltered human David, there's a morally acceptable character to root for and relate to, instead of applauding the monsters. Along with their origins, the monsters' appearances have changed. Considering Rorschach's silhouette principles, Ralph's design is uncannily similar to another mutated creature, the Cathoga. Lizzie forgoes the Godzilla look in favor of a Jurassic World mosasaur, crocodile, to distinguish the design as original. But why? The game is a riff of Godzilla and King Kong. The monster designs are intentional. Augmenting it into something else and marketing it as an edgy, in-your-face action flick will only make it all the more forgettable. Will people want to watch this? Yes, because it stars Dwayne Johnson, and Rampage is well known. This movie will win the mid-April box office because the competition films around that time are modest, with titles like Truth or Dare and Sergeant Stubby. The next big action film comes 2 weeks later with Avengers Infinity. This is a big fish in a small pond scenario, in that this $200 million movie will muscle away lightweight films for 2 weeks. Had it picked on someone its own size, say the heavyweights Avengers Infinity, Solo, Jurassic World 2, Deadpool 2, or The Incredibles 2, it would have been pummeled. So yes, people will watch it, because it's a distraction until summer movie season starts. What will critics think about it? They'll say it's evocative of the movies Mighty Joe Young and 1998 Godzilla, more than the game, and is desperately trying to become the next massive tentpole. They'll label the script as soulless, the characters as rote, and the storyline too predictable and formulaic. Audiences will experience wisp of nostalgia during the monster introductions, but will compare the rest to any kaiju flick, with no real connection to the game. Was it a good idea to make this? Box office juggernaut Dwayne Johnson and kaiju in a game adaptation. It's a golden idea. Before I continue though, I must diverge. I understand Hollywood wants to make lucrative returns. Any business does. But less care is being put into stories and production, with the emphasis being quick earnings. So many movies, especially of the video game genre, are made solely to drain wallets, which is why they're received so poorly. Why can't someone give an iota of regard and make a game movie with integrity in mind, instead of treating it like disposable trash? What separates Hollywood from mockbuster companies like The Asylum, who profits from popular IP? Simple. The former has a larger budget. That being said, it was a terrible idea to make this film, because it only reminds people that Hollywood hates video games. What will be the lasting impression? Like the live-action Tetris movie, this tale deviates so sharply from the source material because the filmmakers think it needs updating. Notice, though, that people always favor the games once they see the improved reimaginings. Rampage is just another disparate adaptation that perpetrates the video game movie curse. Society has become conditioned to this mediocrity by parroting the studio's excuses that games are difficult to convert into visual medium because they're interactive medium, repeating this doctrine as though to convince themselves. Artistic liberty is good in moderation, but must be limited when dealing with established IP. If a Legend of Zelda movie is ever made, it has to center around Link undertaking a perilous quest in Hyrule. Imagine the outcry if it was rewritten with Link as a modern-day scientist who discovers a wormhole where insect-like creatures funnel into our world. In a Rampage movie, I expect to see 3 humans mutate into voracious monsters. I want the filmmakers to want viewers to root for the beast. I don't want a pseudo-drama where we learn about the lifelong friendship between a misanthrope primatologist and an albino gorilla, nor see the alleged introvert fall for a person who belittles him in a forced romance that exists merely to maintain status quo. If these filmmakers are so confident with their creations, they could pitch the project as an original idea, not tack on a famous title to increase viewership, while spouting artistic liberty when someone points out the similarities between said film and game. Oh well, maybe we'll get a good video game movie next decade. What's coming up? Oh, someone's got a gripe about it, and that someone is Marplotic.